Hello, everyone. How's everybody doing tonight or this evening, wherever you may be? I think all of you now know that Unfound is an international program. So when I say tonight, it is 9 p.m. Eastern in the United States. But I know we've had people on this program who have tuned in from Australia, Hong Kong, the United Kingdom, Ireland, etc. So all I can tell you, it's night here on the East Coast of the United States, technically the Gulf Coast of Florida. And it was a little chilly out there today. It's been kind of warm, and then today this was kind of cool out there, a little breezy. Okay. And overcast, but I got out and did some throwing this evening before the sun went down. And I'm doing pretty good. I hope all of you are doing well. Hello, Karen and Louise and Joyce. Joyce, you are much too kind. Thank you for the contribution. Joyce Rivatuzzo. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. We'll get back to what Joyce did there in a moment. Hello, Valerie and Elaine. And thank you, Jill. I have a question from Jill that I'll be answering tonight. I only got one question before tonight's show. So if any of you have any questions, now is the time to get those asked. Who else is in here? Mimi. Hello, Mimi. Eileen. Come on, Eileen. Delane and K-Dog. Jasmine. Twinkle. Fishing. Laura. Hello, Sheree. Thank you for moderating tonight, Sheree. Thank you. And Scarlett. Oh, there she is. Hi, Ed. And I'm not going to say her real name on here. But hello, Scarlett. Beauty. Hope everybody is doing well. Thank you for making time wherever you are for Unfound Live. Now, going back to what Joyce did up here at the top of the chat with that little green monster, cute little monster, jumping around behind the buildings. That's kind of funny. Did you pick that out yourself, Joyce? That's pretty funny. What Joyce has done there has hit the super chat button, and you can see that kind of at the bottom of the chat. It's a gray square with a $sign in the middle. And if you have a PayPal or some sort of a monetary account connected to your YouTube profile, then you can hit that button and donate to Unfound. That's called the Super Chat button. And, of course, you will be recognized in the chat tonight. Of course, if you want to Super Chat and ask a question at the same time or do whatever, that's up to you. But either way, we appreciate the contribution to the program. I think all of you know that at Unfound, we take no advertising for a variety of reasons, mainly because I don't want to have anybody else control the program except myself, because advertisers can get a little demanding. And, we just don't want to put anything between the disappearances we're trying to cover and the public. And sometimes when advertisers get involved, that happens. And I know many of you listen to other programs, other podcasts, and sometimes those other podcasts, the advertising can get a little long. But there's no advertising on Unfound. So, Joyce, thank you for the very generous contribution through Super Chat. And Jill, thank you as well. Thank you. And Melissa says, hi, everyone. I'm so happy the camel was vaccinated, especially in Texas. And says, hi, Melissa and Ann watching on her big screen TV tonight. So everybody just hold on for a second while I do this. Am I big enough for you tonight there, Melissa and Ann? How big is my nose on that screen? Probably pretty big. All right. And little bit, I just tuned in. Did you see my message? I don't think I saw your message little bit. I didn't see it. You've changed your name, though, I see just a little bit. Forgive the pun. Louise watched your show with the doctor lady, who was very good and well researched. Put across the doctor lady, Dr. Telesco. Louise, thank you. Valerie has a question. Oh my! If I could go back in time, that's interesting. Delane, are we hung up? Hello, Boston. Good to see you. And a little bit, how can I contribute? Just got here. Well, it depends what you mean by contribute a little bit. You can hit the super chat button, as Joyce and Jill have done already. We're only 5 minutes in and they did that. Melissa says, I took a picture of it. I may or may not share it. Oh, come on. You got to share it. You got to share it with my face right up against the camera. You got to do that, Melissa. Okay. Also, I want to mention as we get started tonight, as you are watching, I try to remember to say this every week. And that is, if you are watching, whatever device you are using, please hit the thumbs up button. That helps us with the YouTube algorithms. If anybody is doing any searches for true crime content, podcast content, missing persons content on YouTube, then these live shows, this particular live show will pop up. The entire channel hopefully will pop up. And I'm sure you've noticed that although there may be more popular true crime channels on YouTube, I think that we surely provide some of the largest content regarding any true crime channel out there. And that's coming from a program that is primarily audio. So we take great pride in that. I think that you know that I upload videos. Natasha on Fridays turns the audio episode into a video episode that's uploaded on usually on Friday evenings or Saturdays. And of course, with Unfound Now, the map analysis, etc., we try to provide a lot of content on YouTube. Delane, is that on? Yeah, I'm on, Delane. Where are you? I'm on, Delane. There you go. Yes, I'm on. A little bit, or I can post the link for a missing friend. She's been kidnapped by her ex. Oh my gosh, a little bit. That is crazy. A little bit. Have you changed your name a little bit? Redid the spelling? Do you have a new account on here? I'm so used to you. The account being spelled a little bit differently. Haven't been heard from in almost a week. That is crazy. I'm sorry to hear that a little bit. Sorry to hear that. Okay. Then I guess we must have two little bits. Because it used to be ILILBIT, not LITTLBIT. That's weird. Okay. Keep an eye on that, Shuri. Louise, in any missing murder case, was the person has been alleged as doing the crime? Do you ever get the family, the alleged person getting in touch with you and giving you a hard time? I can get back. That's a good question. Delane is back. Scarlett, I love that you get the most info and also continue to help families when you can. I try to, Scarlett. Boston, I love it. Details are everything. It's time consuming for you, but I'm sure you appreciate it. But I think I am. Boston, thank you. Beauty. Ed, your eyes were really pretty when you're done so close. Oh, Beauty, behave. Louise, defending the person who has been named as the alleged killer like his parents. In Mansfield, Ohio. Okay. Okay, this is my first time watching it. Well, it's weird a little bit because we have another little bit that's LILBIT. So that's kind of interesting there. Okay. Well, I'm going to certainly get to some of these questions, and Sheree, don't let me forget to do that. But once again, if you're watching, please give this video a thumbs up as you're watching whatever kind of device you are using, whether it's a phone, tablet, regular old laptop, computer, desktop, whatever it may be. Maybe you're even watching on your car or on your smart TV like Melissa and Ann. This past weekend, played in the usual handicaps, the club over at Taylor. I played horribly. One of my worst rounds over there in a very, 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 very long time. Just felt totally out of it. And it wasn't until later that day that I was still feeling kind of sluggish. I was like, oh, I know exactly what's going on. My allergies have kicked in. Even though I didn't have any asthma or anything, I had this real brain fog going on and just couldn't figure out what is going on. I was sleeping well and everything. Finally figured out. No wonder I felt so horrible and crappy over at Taylor Park on Sunday morning. My allergies had kicked in, and so I took an Allegra, and I've taken one every day, and now I feel spectacular. In fact, I went and played disc golf as practice session up in Brooksville, where I'll be playing this weekend in a tournament, and it felt great. Played okay, except for one particular basket. But, yeah, my allergies kicked in. So as you're watching me right here, I am all hyped up and hopped up on Allegra. Because otherwise I'd be awake and everything, but I just, you know what I'm talking about, that little brain fog type of thing you get going on sometimes when you get allergies. I certainly get that, but without the asthma. So that's why I didn't initially recognize it as allergies. It just took me a while to figure out why do I feel like crap here? And as soon as I took an Allegra, within an hour, I felt great, and I felt pretty well since then. So that's good. But this weekend, it's going to be a long weekend that we are going to do a song pop quiz time. We're going to do that, Melissa. You just hold on. We're certainly going to do that. But this weekend, it's going to be a long weekend. I'm playing in a tournament about an hour and a half north of here in Brooksville. My tee-off time on Saturday is 2:00, and the round is probably going to take 3.5, 4 hours. It's a very long course, kind of wooded, a lot of downhill and uphill shots at this course. And so I'm going to have to leave here probably around 11 or 11:30. Get up there around 1, warm up, go over. So it's going to be a long day. I probably will not get home till like 8:00. In fact, I'll be playing on Sunday as well. And I've already told everybody in the think tank that probably the think tank is going to be moved to Monday, because playing Sunday, I just don't see myself being able to get home by 7:00 on Sunday evening. So we're going to move that to Monday. If you'd like to be part of the think tank, it's patreon.com/Unfound Podcast. So I got disc golf going on this weekend, both days, 1 round each day, but they're going to be long rounds. Going to be out there for a while. Very up and down and all around. Yes, in Florida. In other news, made some wings this past weekend. Went well. I've taken some pictures of that and posted on my private Facebook page if any of you are friends with me on there. And they've come out good. Really working on with the garlic side of it. I have bits of garlic in a little jar and been putting that in the sauce and using garlic salt as well because I love garlic. And I've slowly but surely been adding more and more garlic to the wings, to the sauce, really messing around with that. And I've enjoyed that. I continued to cook the wings the same way, frying them for the same amount of time. But the sauce, I'm certainly experimenting with this. And this is that. And this is the only cooking that I do in my entire life. But some point last year, I was talking to one of my best friends of all time, Doug. And I was just telling him, I love chicken wings, but I just think I can do them better than anywhere that I've eaten them. And so I'm still working on that, but it's fun. It is fun. So minced garlic and butter is the key. I agree with you. I do use butter and do use garlic for sure, Delaney. You're absolutely right about that. I agree. So those are some of the things that are going on with me right now. Everything is good. Very busy. Got the interview done for this Friday's episode. Did it last night. So I'll be talking about that later in the program. Let's do a music quiz right now. It's going to be a very simple one. All right. Very, very simple one. I'm only going to give you one clue. Just one clue. That's it. All right. And this is a song that probably I think anybody of any age should be associated and have heard this song at least once. So I'm not being really obscure or anything like that. It is okay. Here is the question. The only song that I can think of, and I know lots of songs from a lot of different genres, but it would be the only song I know that has the word Mephistopheles in it. Mephistopheles is a word in this song. So that is the quiz question. That is the song I was listening to before the show got started tonight. And by the way, I should have said this. So while you're all don't Google it, you're Googling, you're cheating. I know some of you are probably going to Google that, but it would be nice if somebody knew that without having to do a search for it. And if you do guess it right, I hope you admit that you actually did a search for the song. And likewise, if you didn't have to do a search and get it right, I certainly want to know about that too. But that is the song quiz for tonight. The song has the word Mephistopheles in the lyrics. All right. If you're unfamiliar, maybe I think maybe at least one of you have said already that this is the first time tuning into the live show. Maybe you already get the idea that this live show is a little more laid back, not quite as serious as the episodes usually are for good reason. But we kind of let our hair down. And we do talk a little bit about pop culture. Of course, we're doing the song quiz. I take questions for the audience. I talk a little bit about what's going on in my life, at least most, if not everything that's going on in my life, but the things I feel comfortable talking about. And it's just a little different, a little potpourri of unfound stuff, true crime news, give you maybe a foreshadowing of things to come, commenting on things that we've already done on the program, a little mix of everything. And this live show is now over 3 years old, started in October of 2017. And I think originally it was on Tuesdays, and then at some point I moved it to Wednesdays. It originally also started on Facebook Live, and now it has been on YouTube, I think, since the beginning of 2019 or maybe 2020. Cherie can correct me on that. But and Cherie, my assistant Cherie, has been the moderator for a very long time, and she does a fine job. And I appreciate her giving some of her Wednesday night to making sure that everything stays in line. And if we have any trolls who come in here, she boots them out. That makes it easier for me to do the show. She does one part of it, and I do the hosting. So I appreciate that. All right, let's get back to this question. Luis says, watch Dr. Telesco. Thank you. I'm just going to go through these again. Boston, hello again. Little bit is a different than the other little bit. That is interesting. What are the odds? That is something. Louise asked me, in any missing or murder case where the person has been alleged as doing the crime, do you ever get the family of the alleged person getting in touch with you and getting you a hard time? Yes. It has certainly happened more than a few times, Louise. Probably the first time that I can remember it happening was when we covered the disappearance of James Walker in Virginia. And sometime it wasn't right at the time, but like a year later, a suspect's son contacted me, and he did not like how his father was portrayed in the episode. And I had a conversation. He came in really hard. The kid who was only, I think, barely a teenager when the disappearance happened, but he came in real hard. I kind of got him calmed down. We had a cordial conversation for a while, and then he lost his mind again, and I had to block him. That's usually how it goes, Louise, is that people come in really, really hard, saying that the interview is nothing but a bunch of lies and everything else. And then I ask them, well, what are those lies? What were those lies? Can you tell me what those lies were? And then most of the time, they never get back to me. That's usually how it goes. A couple times they've come back and said some things to counter what the guest said. And in the end, when I pass those messages, of course, along to the guests. And when we talk about it, it turns out it's just more lies. That's usually how it goes, Louise. And I have to tell you, it's kind of unpredictable. What disappearances, what episodes are going to generate that kind of reaction. Some that you think would, from a family of a suspect or the suspect himself or herself, you'd think that they would want to get in contact with me or something, and that doesn't happen. Then others where it's just a different kind of disappearance. And even if there are multiple suspects or you don't even, you're not even sure, then you get nasty emails. It's really hard to predict, Louise. It really, really is. But it does happen, and I do get given a hard time. I've had some threats made against me. And so I try to watch out for myself in public. And I'm sure that if it were to ever happen that I was to meet some of these people in public or something, I just don't know how it would go. So, but yes, the simple answer is yes. And then, of course, expounded on it. So, Louise, I hope that answers your question. Yeah. Yeah, Louise, I got it. Have your chain. Okay. So I'm just going to go down these. Melinda Davis, so Shreya is saying, answering a question, a statement from above. The Melinda Davis disappearance. Okay. Yep. Louise says, have you had your COVID vaccine? Not yet. I'm not, I don't think I'm on the list yet. At least I haven't gotten anything yet. So, no, but my brother, my father had his second shot yesterday, and my brother and his wife are beginning their second shot this coming Monday, I think. So I do know people who have gotten the vaccine, but not me yet. I just don't think that my age group, I think that due to my age and occupation, etc., I don't think I'm high on anybody's list. I'm really not around a lot of people or anything else. So that's part of it. And I'm 50 years old. Delane says Claritin D every day. Delane, I used to use Claritin, and I don't know if I became immune to it or something. It just, after a while, it just did not seem to help me, and I had to move to Allegra, and I've been using Allegra for years now. So Claritin D was mine for a while, like when I lived in Las Vegas. But now that I'm in Florida, I've switched over to Allegra. I don't know. Yeah. So 64 in Kentucky today. Beauty says my allergy sure didn't let me forget it either. Yeah, it's just weird. Yeah, I thought that I was through my, I would say that allergy season here was not too bad for me this year. I did have to hit my inhaler a few times, but it never occurred to me when I started feeling like crap this past weekend. And then I played so badly, I felt so lethargic over there at Taylor that it never occurred to me that it was my allergies until later that day. It just was like, oh yeah, and now I feel fine. And I went and threw today, and I threw great. So I don't know. Boston says, killing me, Ed, as I'm dieting. More sauce, please. Sorry, Boston. It's the only real food I talk about on here, so that'll maybe make you feel better. I do a little cooking of the wings. I've been doing that quite a bit. Maybe once every other week. something like that. Maybe once every third week. I've been cooking homemade wings. I go get the wings from Publix or wherever. I've gotten some at Costco too, and then bring them home and cook them in the oil and everything myself, make the sauce myself. Louise says, put fresh chilies in the sauce. Yeah, that'll be hot, Louise. And I like hot stuff. I might try that. I've been experimenting, so that is not out of the question, Louise. Beauty says Zyrtec. I don't think I've ever tried Zyrtec. Spicy, hello. Oh man, a lot of people are getting it. Are getting the answer. The first answer. Hello, Laura. Who else is in here? Hello, Kathy. Oh, there you are, Kathy. Hello, Kathy. What's going on, Kathy? Fishing. Fishing says Charlie Pride and George Jones singing when they were drunk one night. No, that is not the answer, Fishing. Oh, that would be great if it was. And a lot of people laughing at that one. Good one, Fishing. Hank Jr. Okay, a little bit is talking to Cherie. Okay, beauty. The sauce sounded yummy. Garlic and onion salt makes almost anything good. It does. I agree. Red Hot Chili Peppers, GS and San Diego. No, Red Hot Chili. Nope. A couple people have already gotten the right song. I want to find out if we're going to find out in a second if they had to Google it or they already knew it off the top of their heads. All right, Laura. Okay, a little bit. Okay. Joyce says, I love Hank Williams Jr. He lives here in Panama City Beach. I didn't know that, Joyce. A lot of musicians from other states and countries do live in Florida. I know at least one member of Iron Maiden lives down in Naples. And I know that Brian Johnson, lead singer of AC/DC, lives in Sarasota. It's very, very interesting. And of course, he's from Australia. Velveta says, did they have any side effects? No side effects that I've heard of, and anybody that I know has gotten a vaccine. Yeah. Delane says, Allegra gave me a backache. It's a rare side effect. That is weird, Allegra. I've never heard of that. I don't know. Eileen says, I alternate between Claret and Allegra every other week because they stopped working, but alternating seems to work. Yeah, I think that's what happened to me with Claritin, Eileen, like I said, in Vegas. And I think here in Florida, although I do have allergies here, I really only try to use the medicine when I really, really have to, like I had to do this past weekend. And I think maybe that's kept me from building a resistance to Allegra, possibly, because I've been using it for quite a few years now. Jill says, that and cheesecake. Yes, once in a while, cheesecake does come up on the Unfound Live Show because that is another one of my favorite foods. Cherie, I was straining my brain to figure RHCP, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Cherie. No Google necessary, unmistakable police. Well, let's go to the answer for the question. Julie G, and very soon after her, Karen, got the answer. Song that has the word or name Mephistopheles in it. And of course, it is Wrapped Around Your Finger by The Police. And that's what I was listening to before the show started tonight. Wrapped Around Your Finger by The Police. Great tune. Reminds me of 7th grade because that's when Synchronicity came out. Of course, Every Breath You Take, King of Pain. Spectacular album. Love The Police. And just even Sting on his own. So Wrapped Around Your Finger is the answer. Mephistopheles is not your name. I know what you're up to just the same. So good. So good. So there you go. So no Google was necessary for Julie. Unmistakable police. All right, Julie knows her police. All right, good job, Julie. Good job, Karen. A salute to both of you. Okay, let's move into, now that we're about a half hour in, let's get into some of the items that I have lined up. I did see Sting live. I did see Sting back in about 2002, Melissa. It was an okay concert. He was playing a lot of new stuff, which I didn't know. And he did like a medley of Police songs, which I thought was a little crappy. But I did see him in concert. Sometimes I forget that I saw him in concert, but I saw him at the theater at, where was it? It was the Aladdin at the time, but eventually is now Planet Hollywood. Or no, it was Planet Hollywood. Now it's one or the other, whatever. I think it started as Planet Hollywood and changed to the Aladdin now. Or is it the opposite way? But it's I saw it at the casino that took the Aladdin's place. It's a huge, I think it's the Aladdin. Yeah. Or is it Planet Hollywood? I get so confused. It's I haven't been to Las Vegas in a while, but that's where I saw it. It was 2002. And in fact, I went to see it with a person all of you know who you've seen me with before, my friend Shay, who came down and visited me in 2019. She and I went together way back in 2002. We were just kids. All right. As I usually do when it comes to items that I want to discuss for the program, let's start with the Joshua Guimond poll. We went back in time to 2016 to revisit the interview that I did with Patrick Marker. And from Behind the Pine Curtain, I offered up new intro and a new summation. Also wrote a blog about it at patreon.com/Unfound Podcast if you'd like to read it. And also talked about how I wrote about Josh's disappearance in Volume 2 of Season 1 of the Unfound book series. And the poll, I don't think we've ever done a poll for Josh's disappearance before because we didn't start doing the polls till, 2018 or something. And we also had an opportunity to talk about Josh's disappearance in the think tank for the first time. So I found that to be very interesting. And the public chose one particular choice. And in the think tank, we came to a different conclusion. If you're part of the discussion group on Facebook, you know that, if you've checked it, that a majority of you picked the idea that Joshua drowned. He was drunk, stumbled into a lake or creek, and then there was a cover-up of his drowning because the college was trying to put a new spin on this is the new and improved St. John's University after they covered up all the sexual abuse for so many years. The most popular choice was that he drowned in the lake and the school covered it up. However, in the think tank, myself, I agreed with the members. We were almost unanimous in that we decided that Josh walked off. Now, what does that mean? It's just hard to say. Cherie and I even had this discussion recently, just within the last couple of weeks, right, Cherie? When I said walked off, and you were like, well, what does that mean? And we had a short discussion about that. What it means to me is that the person decided to disappear on his or her own. There was no foul play. The person wasn't forced to do that. The person wasn't abducted or anything, but the person chose to walk off. To me, that means that usually the person has ended up deceased somehow. Now, the tough part in Josh's case, it's just hard to say what happened. If you're going to pick the choice that he walked off, well, what does that mean? Did he walk off and start a new life? Well, as I wrote in the Patreon blog, and we talked about it in the think tank, being that he was in the fake ID business, maybe that's what he was planning. Maybe he wasn't selling those IDs or giving those IDs out to anybody. Maybe he was making a fake ID for himself because he was going to go off and change his name and start a new life somewhere. Possible. Rare. I don't think that would be the choice on the top of anybody's list. But being that he did have experience with fake IDs, I think it makes it at least a little more possible than maybe any other disappearance that we've covered. However, for me, being that I know that, we just cannot ignore what seems like a thing in the 21st century of young men disappearing or committing suicide after having a breakup. We've covered a few disappearances like that, and I talked about that. But probably the one that comes to everybody's mind is Devin Bond, who had this girl. Of course, he was a few years younger than Josh, but he was not allowed to see this girl anymore. And right after that happened, he ran off in the middle of the night, took his parents' gun, and killed himself. And we now know that he committed suicide, and his remains were eventually found in Tennessee. Now, the tough thing about Josh's disappearance is there's no proof that he had access to a gun. There's no proof that he had access to a knife. No proof that he had access to any type of drugs on which he could have overdosed on. So it makes it a lot more difficult. And in fact, in some ways, except for, of course, Tom's remains being found, it's kind of like Tom Brown's disappearance and finding of his remains. If you believe that he killed himself somehow, well, then how did he do it? A lot of people don't believe that, but a lot of people believe that he was murdered. But if you are inclined to believe that he did bring harm to himself, well, how did that happen? So that's what we have to think about in Josh's disappearance as well. If you believe that he walked off, then what exactly happened? And we talk about that in the think tank. And if you would like to take part in the think tanks, I talk about it every week, patreon.com/Unfound Podcast. And you have to be a premium Patreon member, meaning you are contributing to the program at $12 a month or above. So we have some very detailed discussion every week. They usually go about an hour and a half, something like that, depending on everything that we have to talk about. They could go anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half long, the think tanks. And they are 7 p.m. Eastern on Sunday evenings, although this weekend it's going to get pushed to Monday due to my disc golf tournament this week. And usually I can get home in plenty of time from disc golf tournaments, but due to the tee times and everything, the way everything's set up and the length of the round, I just don't think that I'm going to have any chance to get back here in time on Sunday. So let me see what everybody has been saying. Fishing says, come on, Ed, bro. I don't know what that means, Fishing. Come on, broaden your genre. Oh, that's what you mean. Give us some country music questions. Fishing, that's not going to happen. I will tell you, the closest I get to country, and I'm not even sure it's country, it's more like folk music, is like C.W. McCall. I love the song Convoy, Wolf Creek Pass, the Filler Up Cafe. I love those tunes. They're great music. That's as close as I get to country these days. Okay. I'm just telling you that I stick to the genres that I know. And I'd like to think that I've picked a variety of genres. We did Constant Craving by Katie Lang. That's supposed to be a country. Somebody told me she's supposed to be a country music person, Fishing. So it's not a country music song, but then we had Guns N' Roses. We have The Police. I'm trying to mix it up. I'm trying. Kathy says she has heard that song by Wrapped Around Your Finger. Okay, Kathy. Hello, Ruth. What's going on? You're allowed to be late. You can always pick up the beginning later. Ruth says, every Planet Hollywood I've been to is so noisy. Well, this is the casino, hotel casino in Las Vegas, Ruth. And I saw Sting in the arena at that casino, like I said, 2002, I think it was. Here, thought I've never heard of it. Who knows what I've been singing all these years? That's funny. Yeah, most people, if you have never looked at the lyrics for that song Wrapped Around Your Finger, probably, what is he saying there? Mephistopheles, and that's all one word. It's a name of another name for the devil. Melissa says, Eileen Whitworth, I can't wait to sing it myself and hear what I came up with. I want to hear that too. Melissa says, a friend of mine, instead of Hold Me Closer, Tiny Dancer, thought it was Hold Me Closer to You, Tony Danza. I've heard that before, Melissa. That's funny. Okay. Fishing says, most missing people are dead, I think, mostly homicide. Fishing, I'm inclined to believe that as well, but I have to admit that I'm becoming more and more convinced that probably there are more walkaways than we realize. It seems that more and more missing people, when they go missing, especially more recent ones that are people who are found within a few days or a week or a few weeks, it turns out they have walked away. They decided to walk off and something happened all on their own. And so I like to keep tabs on that. And I try to remember that when analyzing the disappearances we cover on Unfound. Eileen says, Melissa, I have no idea I'm going to. Okay, so we're still talking about Wrapped Around Your Finger. It's so good. That song's so good. Nina says, hi, Ed. Great time again. Hello, Nina. Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. Yeah. Kathy, yeah. Shri says, I do not know anyone in Melinda's family. We have been following from a missing person's perspective only, not a personal one. That's true. Shri, thank you. Velvet, you can name more than one C.W. McCall song? Absolutely. I grew up on C.W. McCall, Velveta. I can remember when my parents and I would go to Canada fishing in the late 70s. We had an track player in the Jeep Wagoneer that we had. And it would be me, my mom and dad, and my mother's parents, my grandpa Frank, grandma Emma, would all be going to Canada fishing, pulling a boat, and we would have an 8-track. We had an 8-track player in the Jeep, and that is one of the 8 tracks that we had. It was C.W. McCall's Greatest Hits or something like that. And I still love C.W. McCall. I still love him. It's so good. Like I said, Wolf Creek Pass, Convoy, Aurora Borealis, which is a really good tune. Down Home, Fill Her Up, Keep On a Truckin' Cafe. Can't say the whole title. There's a song about a want ads going to check out this old truck and the hijinks that happens when he goes to check out this old truck and this dog bites him and all of that. It's so good. The songs are so funny. Now, what you may not know this, Velveta, and I always like to bring this up anytime I talk about C.W. McCall, is that the same guy that wrote the music you have to remember something. C.W. McCall is not a real person. That's just a character. The guy you've seen that's C.W. McCall, that's not his real name. C.W. McCall is just the character he plays. The guy that you see in those pictures who is C.W. McCall, his real name is Bill Fries or Fries, Fries. And he was an advertising executive back in the 1970s. And he created this character for these local commercials where he was responsible for ads. And what is unknown, but this is going to totally, totally blow your mind, is that the same person who wrote the music for C.W. McCall is the guy now who has been doing this for a long time. You're not going to believe this. This is crazy. This shows the range of this guy. The same guy that wrote the music for all of C.W. McCall songs, Convoy and all of them, is the same guy who created Mannheim Steamroller. That music that becomes so popular around Christmas time. No. It's like electronic music, electronic Christmas music. And it's been going on, like I said, for like 30 years. The same guy that wrote the C.W. McCall stuff is the guy who started Mannheim Steamroller. Crazy. Every time I think about that, it blows my mind. Ruth says, modern country sounds like pop. I don't listen to it, Ruth. Yep. I just don't listen to it. Nina, wow, my hair, your hair is so long. Where is bass guitar? Play some rockin' tunes. Yeah, that's funny. Thank you, Nina. Yeah, the hair continues to grow. It just keeps growing. I can't stop it. Fishing says, Ed, you are so funny and so nice to hear live. Thank you, Fishing. I try to be funny and nice. Sometimes it's tough. Wolf Creek Pass is in my state. Yep. They close it during the winter. I know where Wolf Creek Pass is, right there, downtown Pagosa Springs, right? went around and down. We ran on the ground on the edge of town. And we bashed into the side of the feed store in downtown Pagosa Springs. Man, I know the lyrics to that song. Wow. Ironically enough, Mannheim Steamroller popped up when I Googled Mephistopheles. Now, that is funny. That is funny. That's true, Eileen. I knew that fishing. I know a lot of useless information fishing. Hey, all your songs have been around before I was born. Well, maybe, I don't know how old you are, Jill, so I'm not going to ask, but surely Katie Lane's Constant Craving came out after you were born, Jill. Surely. Cherie says, I had to listen to Mannheim Steamroller all the way from Texas to Canada once. Why was that, Cherie? We want to hear it. We want to hear that reason, Cherie. Jill says, I am 32. Well, Constant Craving came out after you were born. I think that came out in the 90s, Jill. So I did get that one in there. Okay, let's move on to this. This is also kind of regarding Joshua Guimond. And this kind of goes along with a new project that just is getting started. I just announced it in the think tank group. It's going to start in the think tank, and I'm going to see how it goes. Being that we're coming up, this year is going to be the 5-year anniversary of Unfound. I never could have imagined it. We're about 4.5 years in. You know that I considered the anniversary date to be sometime in early September. That was when the first episode of Unfound ever came out in 2016. And being that we're coming up on 5 years, we're just passing 200 disappearances covered, 235 to 240 episodes total. It's crazy. It's just, I never could have imagined this. But one thing that is important to me is that all of those people who were on early in Unfound's existence, before Unfound had a name, before I had any assistants who, of course, work on Unfound on their own. Sharif, for example, moderating all the discussions that we have here. I've talked about Emily and everybody else, Natasha, Eric, Carrie, Heather, etc. I want to make sure that those people who came on Unfound early on, who took a risk being on the program, being that the program had no track history at all, I want to make sure that those people are not forgotten. And those disappearances, of course, are not forgotten. Now, some of them have been solved, and that's great, but many haven't. And this year, starting in the think tank, I'm going to start working with some people in the think tank about what we might call refocusing on some of these disappearances we covered like in 2016 and 2017. So there are about, maybe 12 disappearances in 2016. And then, of course, we have a whole year of disappearances in 2017. So let's say 12 and 40. About 55, 52, 55, somewhere in their disappearances between 2016 through the end of 2017. And I want to go back and look at those disappearances again. Of course, I don't have the time to do that, being that we, of course, make episodes every week. So I'm getting together with some of the people in the think tank who I've gotten to know very well. If you're not part of the think tank, once again, patreon.com/Unfound Podcast. But I will tell you that I've gotten to know the people in the think tank really well, probably better than most of the people in just the general audience. Because when we get together on Sunday evenings, it's usually a very small group, 10 people, 12 people. I've had many one-on-one conversations with the people who are in the think tank, and I feel like I've gotten to know them, even though I've not met, I don't think, any of them, except for Joyce. Hello, Joyce. Joyce is here. Of course, Joyce was a guest with her daughters, Peggy and Patty McDaniel, being missing. But we're going to start going back and looking at those old disappearances and see what more we can do. Now that I have a lot more experience, being that a lot of people in the think tank have a lot more experience, being on the ground with Dr. Eric Grabowski, who's been doing some educating there, teaching there. We're going to put these new skills, this experience to use, and going back and looking at these disappearances again from 2016 and 2017. Once again, because I never want any of those people to feel, just because it's now 4 years in, 5 years in, covering new people coming to the program, new guests on the program, and everything that we do now that we didn't do back then. Of course, the YouTube channel didn't exist. I didn't do any Unfound Nows, didn't do the live show, didn't do any map analysis, all those things. Those are all relatively new things starting 2017, 2018, and on. We're going to go back and see who else we can talk to. Of course, we talked to a lot of family members already regarding all of those cases. So we're going to look at these cases one-on-one, one by one, and see who else we can reach and see if we can find more information that can be brought to the public that was not covered the first time around. I don't have a name for this project. I don't know if that's, it's probably going to take a while before we can bring anything to the public. But this is something, it's kind of a pilot program, I would call it. We're going to see how it goes, see what kind of progress we can make. And if it goes well, I would certainly like to bring it to all of you. All right. But I think just because this is a pilot program, I don't know how it's going to go. I'm keeping it very, very, very small right now with, less than 10 people, coordinating with them and seeing what they can get done on their own. Because once again, I have a lot of things to do. My assistants already do things. So I'm going to relying on these people to do work on their own time. Okay. Of course, they're volunteering. I can't make them do it, but I've already had some of them come forward and say, yes, I'm very interested. And they get to pick their own disappearance from that time frame that they get to look into. We'll talk about it one-on-one and try to flesh out some more ideas about what can be done. So that's a new project that we're going to be working on. I will let you know how it goes. I really don't know how it's going to go. I do know that there's some disappearances that we covered in 2016 and 2017 that probably do not lend themselves. There's just not a lot left. Not to be mean or anything, but we know that a lot of different disappearances, a lot of information, not a lot of information. Sometimes there's just not many people to talk to and people to reach. We'll just have to see. But I'm expecting some of these disappearances, there's a lot that can still be done from our standpoint. And I'm going to guess that there are also going to be some disappearances where not a lot can be done. We'll just have to do it, not, forgive the pun, but on a case-by-case basis. So that is something we're going to start working on. I made the announcement in the very, 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 very private Unfound think tank private group on Facebook that you can't even search for. You have to be a Patreon member at the premium level to even be admitted to it. But I brought that up in there yesterday or the day before. I made a long post in there and had a very positive response. So that's something that we're going to be getting off the ground in the next month or two. But like I said, it's going to be up to these people who are volunteering. I'm asking them, and they're saying that, yes, they can do it. They're essentially volunteering. They're going to have to do some of this work on their own. They can come to me with any questions. We can figure out some things for them to do. We can brainstorm ideas, but in the end, they're going to have to do it. And I will give them all the guidance that I can. But it does seem there is some interest, but you never know how these things are going to go. And I think it's going to be fairly difficult. But I just want to make sure those families from those disappearances in 2016, 2017 realize that we have not forgotten about them, even though Unfound has moved on to a lot of other disappearances and we're doing a lot of different things. We want them to know that they're not forgotten. That's very, very important to me. Very. So this is one way to show that. It's been eating, I have to admit, it's been something that's been eating at me. It eats at me every time. We've had 4 guests who have died in the last couple years, and some guests I haven't talked to for a long time. And every time one of these guests dies, I'm like, man, I did not talk to that person in a long time, and now the person's not here. And of course, their disappearance, their missing loved one still hasn't been found, and it eats at me. And so I just feel like we have to do something about that, and that's what we're going to do. Can't make no guarantees in disappearance cases, as you know, very difficult, but we're going to do what we can. So there you go. Let's see some of the 1992 that came out. Okay, you were just barely born, Jill. Thank you. Shree says, regarding Mannheim Steamroller, my stepdad was in the back seat of a Bonneville with my little brother. What were we thinking? I don't know what you were thinking, Shree. Delane, do you remember which disappearance you started the blog with? I've read them all. I just don't remember. Delane, I started the blog in September of 2017, but I think that I wrote blogs going back to the beginning of August. So I would say the first blog I ever wrote might be Jennifer Wilkerson or Aaron Gilbert. That's probably the first one I ever wrote for Patreon. It's a pretty good guess. Somewhere in there. It's August, September of 2017. Thank you, Melissa. And once again, if you are in the think tank, if you are eligible for the think tank, once again, being a premium Patreon member, then you are automatically eligible, to get involved in this. I'm not trying to keep the general public, but once again, this is something that we need to start small. I need to make sure that this is something that is manageable. Okay. I know everybody loves to do research. Everybody has their own pet disappearances, but it has to be somewhat orderly and organized. And once again, I think it's because, just frankly, as I've said before, I think I've just gotten to know some of the think tank people a little more because of the interaction I've had with them. I don't have a lot of interaction with the general public regarding Unfound, as much as I've had the one-on-one contact with many of the people in the think tank just because of the venue. Jill, better question. What are some recommendations do you have given guests in 2016, 2017 cases so we can use that as a starting point? Jill, I would gladly talk to you about that one-on-one if you'd like to have a discussion offline. That's a good question. Thank you, Beauty. Thank you. Thank you. Hey, Linda, what's going on? You're late. That's okay. Twinkle says, I've already gotten started on my case. I certainly want to talk to you about that, Twinkle. Hey, you figure it out as we go. Trial and error. Would love to be a part, but I don't have time. Wish I did. A lot of people don't fishing, and you don't beat yourself up over that. Okay. I realize that everybody has their own lives. Everybody has their own priorities. A lot of you have a lot of things going on, especially these days. This past year has been very tough for everybody. All I'm asking is those people who want to help out with this, just a couple hours a week, doing something, go into a database, finding a phone number, finding articles on newspapers.com, things like that. Just a couple hours a week. After a while, those hours add up. You put 2 hours a week into a disappearance that's been forgotten by most people. You get through 1 year, that's 100 some hours. It adds up. It's no different than pennies. I mean, you pile up enough pennies and you start, at some point you start talking about real money. This is how I look at it. And it's sure you're right. It does help to have fresh eyes on too. Yeah. And once again, I think it also has to do with now that we have 200 disappearances under our belt to go back and look at those ones when I know myself, just starting this all by myself, it was kind of on the job training. When I interviewed Mary Lau, who's the first interview I ever did for the program, I will be honest with you, I was just kind of winging it. And I keep saying that Mary Lyle, who at that point, of course, Susie had been missing for 18 years, and she had done many different programs, well known and everything, that she decided to allow me to interview her, a guy who had never done an interview regarding missing persons case ever before. The program hadn't even started yet. That she said, yeah, let's talk. You just cannot even tell what that meant to me. It was just a mind blower, and it continues to be a mind blower. But trust me, I was winging it. I had no prior experience doing any of this before I started the program, so I've been learning just like all of you have. Delane says it's especially sad when someone passes and there's no one left to keep searching. Yeah, I agree. At some point, the rest of us are going to have to pick up the slack. Yep. Beauty says we learn as we go from day to day, one step, one day at a time. Just do the best you can, and you're only human. That's true. But as you know, I do not do it all by myself. We have a huge team that put in a lot of work. And now I'm going to be bringing, I guess you could say, more people into the team who are going to be doing more work. But I just don't know what, that's the only way to do it. These things are not going to be solved by magic. Yeah. Fishing says my sister can find out anything and everything. Wow, that sounds scary, Fishing. Does she work for the CIA? The NSA? Okay. It's just like looking for that disc in the bush. Sometimes you need someone else to look. Exactly. Sheree, going back to the special edition Jason Landry episode. Thank you for bringing that up, Sheree. Suzanne Lau and Craig Fear, my pet cases, says Linda. Yeah, and we've covered them both. All right, so that is something that's in the works right now. I've not had a one-on-one real conversation with any of these people yet. I brought it up. They've contacted me, say they're interested. They've already started picking out those disappearances or that particular disappearance from the 2016-2017 timeframe, the one that they want to work on, but I've not really had any deep one-on-one conversations with any of them yet, but that's going to happen. All right, let's move on to some other things. The newsletter came out this past Monday. I felt very fortunate to be able to write it and get it done, about 4,000 words. Did a lot of writing, as it usually is the case when a first of the month happens along at the same time that I have to do the Patreon blog. Between both of them, I wrote about 8,000 words between Friday and Monday. It's a good thing I don't have any social life. But it got done. If you are on the list, you should have received it. If not, look in your spam folder. That's what I always say. And if you'd like to be on the email list, contact me at unfoundpodcast@gmail.com, and I will get you on the list. We have over 1,000 people on the email newsletter list. Really proud of that list. And in it, you may read some things that I've mentioned on here before, and then you're probably going to read some things that I've not mentioned anywhere. But the newsletter, once again, I try to make it between 3,000 and 4,000 words. It just depends on how much is going on. This month, I came close to that 4,000 word total. And like I said, the Patreon blog, patreon.com/Unfound Podcast, I was around over 4,000 words as well. Good thing I can type fast. All right. Linda says, send you an email for the newsletter. Linda, you please do that, and we'll get you on the list. So the newsletter came out Monday, sent it out Monday afternoon, Monday evening, Eastern time. And so you should have gotten it. Yep. Melissa says it was a great newsletter. Well, thank you. I try to put some thought into it every month, Melissa. I don't want it to just be something, well, we have a newsletter. I really do try to put some thought into the topics that I write about, for sure. Thank you, Beauty. On fishing, thank you. You're very generous. I think that makes $60 total contributions tonight for this live show. Thank you so much to Jill, Joyce, and now Fishing. Thank you so much. You're very generous. Thank you. Let's answer Jill's question. She already asked me one before, but Jill, once again, is going for a repeat as the best question asker for the live show, just like she got that award last year. Jill asked me, when looking at your cases, are there any guests who have appeared in your podcast but have been threatened or coerced? The general answer, yes, is Jill. Jill is yes. Some of them, not in all of them. Some of them have. Um, it's the reason on some interviews they don't want to mention names, or they don't want to mention last names, or they want to keep the identities of these people a little vague. That happens once in a while. You know me, I like to say names, but I can't make the guests say names, and I do try to, you know, if they're not going to use the names, then I don't use the names in anything I talk, anything I mentioned regarding the case, not in the Patreon blog or anywhere else. Um, Try to do that. Maybe I've made a mistake once in a while. I'm not perfect, but I would like to think that 99% of the time I honor their wishes, and I certainly never do it, necessarily on purpose. But some of them do worry about their well-being. Some of them do worry about because they may have other children, for example. Some of them do worry because some of them believe that there might have been some sort of group action regarding the disappearance. Of course, if it was planned or something like that. So some of them have been threatened, um, but overall, though, Jill, I would say by the time that I'm interviewing them, that the average age of a disappearance on Unfound is about 17 years old. That by the time 17 years rolls around, if that's the average, that kind of fear is past. It may be that they had that kind of fear in the first couple years after the disappearance happened, which I think makes sense. But you get to 17 years later, and that's kind of worn off. Of course, after 17 years, it could be the suspect is deceased, or the suspect's in jail, or a lot of different situations that could cause their fear to go away. And sometimes the reason that fear goes away, even if they've gotten threats in the past, is because they start looking, it's been 17. Some of them feel they have nothing to lose. It's not that their status or that suspect status or anything has changed. They just start looking back on their life, and maybe they're getting older. Maybe they're having some health issues, and they figure, I got nothing to lose at this point, so we're just going to let it fly. So some of them have. I don't know necessarily if those threats or real, or this coercion that happens is real. I would say many more of my guests have tried to been scammed than threatened. Some of them, unfortunately, have been successfully scammed, and that is sad. It ticks me off, and I try to help them with that. Once they've been on the program, then they know that they can contact me at any time. If somebody, ever contacts them and says, well, I can help you, I tell them, you call me first. Don't do a thing. We'll talk it over. Somebody calls you and says, hey, I'm a private investigator. I think I can help with your daughter's missing persons case. You don't say anything. You don't send them any money or anything else. You call me and we'll talk about it. That's what I do for guests after they've been on the program. And I do, of course, do that for free. We do everything for free. So I think, Jill, way more of them have been scammed or have been attempted to be scammed than have been threatened or anything, but that exists too. But I think that a lot of guests, by the time they're on Unfound, they're so over that. But some of them, I think a few of them still are a bit afraid, but they decide to come on the program anyway, and I admire their courage. But good question, Jill. Jill always comes up, not to brag about Jill and make everybody maybe feel a little bad, but Jill always asks, she has a consistency in her questions. She always seems to come up with a question that I've never been asked before, which isn't easy to do given that I've taken so many questions over the last 4.5 years. But speaking of which, being that this is March and we'll soon be into April, I know it's going to get here like that. Of course, April of every year is an update episode month. This will be update episode number 8. We do them every 4 months. So there's one in April, there's one in August, the last Friday of April, the last Friday of August, the last Friday of December, which of course is the last Friday of the year. And we just did an update episode back in December. Well, April's coming up, and so you can look forward to that update episode. Once again, I think it's number 8. Will be the last Friday of April. But before that, if you don't forget this, you know that I do a Q&A episode once a year as well. Even though I do questions and answers on this live show, unfortunately, not every listener of Unfound watches the live show. I wish every one of them did. But so they don't get to hear some of the questions that all of you ask me. And of course, then they don't get to hear my answers. So I will be doing a Q&A episode, which will be the next to last Friday of episodes. So one Friday will be the Q&A episode, and then the next Friday will be the update episode. And in the Q&A episode, I will be taking a lot of the questions, going over some of the questions that I've received in the live shows over the last few months. But I'll also be taking new questions that you would like for me to answer during the Q&A episode. So you can be looking forward to that in April. Of course, between now and then, we'll be covering disappearances every Friday, as long as we can line up the interviews, which you never know what's going to happen with that. But that is the plan right at this moment. Next to last Friday of April, the Q&A episode, and then the last Friday of April, update episode number 8. And we'll just see how much I have to talk about. You never can tell with these update episodes. So let's move on to this. Delane says, Jill, we had one guest that actually tried to meet with a scammer, but unfortunately the person that showed up for the meet had no idea about the scam. I don't remember which one that was, Delane. You will have to remind me. We had one guest that actually tried to meet with a scammer, but unfortunately the person that showed up for the meet had no idea about the scam. I'm sure if this does not ring a bell, Delane, I will tell you, though, that although we've not covered this particular disappearance yet, but I was in contact with the mother of a missing woman who was this close to going and getting $5,000 out of the bank to take somewhere because she thought that some person online had her daughter. And I had to tell this woman, if you go and do that, you might end up going missing as well. And I finally did talk her out of going. She was absolutely convinced that this person had her daughter. And I just had to tell her, no, this person doesn't. And, unfortunately, sometimes that's the role I have to play. Sometimes I call it bad cop. I mean, it's not bad. I'm trying to help them, and I'm certainly correct in my assertion. But I'm the person that has to give that mother the bad news that don't do that. And she didn't end up doing it. And I think who was doing this did get caught doing that. But it's very sad, very tough, very tough. And unfortunately, though, this woman who I helped then decided she didn't want to be on the program. But I still helped her anyway. Delane says, I sent you an article about it through email. Right now, Delane, if so, I will look at it. There were 2 that were contacted by the same scam. Okay, Delane. In the newsletter, moving on to the next topic, in the newsletter, I went through some of the upcoming trials that should be happening at least in 2021 and maybe into 2022. And there are quite a few of them of disappearances that Unfound is covered that are going to come to trial or some sort of court proceeding this year, if not early next year. And I'm just going to go through them. Even though I did that in the newsletter, I'm just going to go through them very quickly so all of you can know which ones I am talking about. First of all, on the list, I have Tom Brown. We keep hearing that there's going to be a grand jury convened to go over evidence trying to prove that Tom was actually murdered and it wasn't some sort of suicide or anything else. But that's going to happen sometime. We had Unfounded heard that it was going to happen in January. I don't know if that happened. I've not gotten any I've not heard anything through the grapevine, but I think given we have so many contacts in Canadian Texas now, I think I would have heard if a grand jury had been convened, but we've not heard anything. Um, I don't know how that's going to go. At least by my estimation, I'm not saying that Tom Brown wasn't murdered. I think there are reasons to believe that. But the facts that I know, it's going to be hard at this point, it sounds, to prove that, despite other people saying otherwise. What I think I know about Tom Brown's disappearance, it's going to be a little difficult. But we'll see. Could be totally wrong. So that's supposed to be happening sometime this year, grand jury. And whether we'll find out what goes on there or not, I don't know. I hope we do. Next, Austin Pivo, of course. Him being murdered in Idaho. That trial was supposed to happen last year. Did not due to COVID. But the three men, my understanding is they're going to be tried separately. For his murder, his remains were found. What I'm going to be looking for in his murder is why this happened. Is that going to come out in the trial? I still don't think that his mother knows, Mother Susan. Because if you remember, somebody pulled a knife on Austin the night before, but the guy that pulled a knife on him the night before is not a person who is alleged to have killed Austin the next day. Very strange. But I'm certainly going to be interested to hear why it happened. Why is it that his boss at this job and two coworkers decided to kill Austin that day? You know, what went so wrong so fast? Kamisha Hollis, that's a disappearance that we covered in 2019. I think that's another one. The trial would have occurred by now had it not been for COVID-19. In that particular disappearance, her remains have still not been found. But her boyfriend, the father of her children, and remember, he was a stalker. She was at work, and he wanted her to have her phone on so he could watch her all the time. Remember that? And they have a lot of evidence against this guy. I think that he has a good chance of being convicted, but of course, Kamisha's remains have still not been found. Of course, Janelle Matthews, Steve Pankey, he's been charged with their murder. Not sure if that's going to happen this year or not, given we have to remember that he was just charged just toward the end of last year. So I don't know how fast the wheels of justice are going to turn in Colorado, but we'll be keeping an eye on that. Tyler North, his ex-wife and her boyfriend, charged with his murder. His remains have still not been found, but we know that they were charged, I think maybe in September of last year. I think there's maybe a decent chance that this all goes to trial. If it's going to go to trial, maybe they'll plead out, but I think that we should be looking for that in 2021. Jonathan Estes, nothing concerning his disappearance necessarily, but his wife still has to be on trial for the selling of that Bobcat, that piece of equipment, machinery that eventually was found and brought back to Jonathan's family. But she still has yet to go on trial for that. I don't know if that will reveal anything about his disappearance or not. We'll just have to see. Of course, we have Dennis Bowman, who was just in the news recently. And if you watched that live feed or if you read articles since it came out, we know that Dennis claimed that he came home from somewhere, and it looked like he claimed that Alexis was planning to run away. Of course, she had already claimed that he was sexually abusing her. He claims that he slapped her. She fell down the stairs, and then it's a little vague after that, but he felt then that he needed to cut her up and bury her and then move her to the new location. As I wrote in the newsletter, I have doubts whether the stair thing ever happened. It sounds to me like Dennis is trying to blame it on the stairs and not on himself. I think the stairs are a scapegoat. I don't believe that ever happened. But we'll see if he's going to choose to go to trial or he's going to plead out like he did in the murder of the woman back in 1980. We'll just have to see. It's even though his wife is saying otherwise, it's pretty clear to me that she's known the whole time, even though she says that she just discovered that within the last couple of years. And so there's, of course, his trial. We'll see what happens there. And we also can't forget Unique Harris, who's this Isaac Moy character was charged with her murder just right there at the end of 2020, even after we covered her disappearance in November of 2020. It's weird how that happened so close together. But being that he was just charged, I don't know if that trial is going to be happening in 2021 or not. Once again, it'll just depend on how fast the wheels of justice are going to choose to move in Washington, D.C. But so that's quite a few. I mean, that's quite a few trials, court proceedings that we're keeping an eye on here at Unfound. I'd like to think that in all of these situations, the court proceedings will resolve in a positive way for the families, but there's no guarantees. And we have to remember, in some of these, remains still have not been found. And remember, the program is called Unfound. It's not called Unsolved. We're all about, if there is a suspect, charging that suspect, making sure that suspect goes to jail if he or she is guilty. But it's also about finding these people, finding these remains. It's just not about putting somebody in jail. So we have to remember, and Kamisha Hollis, Tyler North, once again, Jonathan Estes, Unique Harris. These are people who there's going to be court proceedings, but their remains have still not been found. So we have to remember that. Cherie says it all depends on who you talk to regarding Thomas Brown. Certainly true. We certainly do have a lot of people out there who think they know a lot about the case, and a lot of promises continued to be made regarding his death. But in my estimation, so far those are empty promises. You know, I've always, my whole entire life, well before I started Unfound, it's always been under promise, over deliver. Ed Densel does not hype things. I like, even with this new project that I'm talking about, I'm excited about it, but I think that I don't want to hype it so much. I'm going to kind of undersell it. This is something we're starting out slow. We're being very modest about it. We're going to see how it goes. Whereas it seems other people like to, if they're starting projects or doing something, they like to it's going to be the greatest thing ever. You just watch. That's just not my style. So here at Unfound, we like to underpromise and overdeliver. And so with Thomas Brown, we're continuing to underpromise. Yeah, Delane, I can't forget about Alyssa Turney's stepdad shot. I did forget about that one. That's certainly one that could happen in 2021. Once again, her remains have not been found. This is another one of those situations, Delane, where it certainly seems like he did something, but you get into a courtroom with a defense attorney and maybe things that you think are true start to look a little vague. And that's all it takes for a jury to decide that her father did not cause Alyssa's disappearance. So I think we just have to temper our expectations in all of these, including Alyssa's. But I have to admit, I was even surprised that he was even charged. That's, once again, I am not an expert on her disappearance. It's hard to be an expert on any particular disappearance when you've covered 200 of them. But I was surprised that he was charged all this time later. It's not clear to me that anything has changed in that case in a very long time. So, Shri says, crazy that Mike Turney's bond is $500,000 and Steve Pankey's is $5 million. Yeah. I don't know, Shri, if that's a difference of attorneys, or they just think that Steve Pankey is more dangerous than Mike Turney is. I don't know how to assess that. I don't know. Shri says, Letitia Stock going to trial this year. We didn't cover it, but just thought I would mention it. Yeah, Shri, All of you should know that my assistants have been keeping close eyes on the Letitia Stock, her and her craziness, and of course the death of her stepson and how she most likely killed him. So they've been keeping a very close eye on that. I have not, but I do see them talking about it in our private discussion group on Facebook. Marlene. Hey, there's Marlene. Hello again from Texas. Finally got on, been a little under the weather. Sorry to hear that, Marlene. It's good to see you. I always love seeing you when you post on the Unfound page. You are a reliable commenter on the Unfound page, and I thank you for that. Shree says, regarding the bail or bonds amounts, I'm guessing it's a DA thing. I guess it could be, Shree. Don't know. Delane says, is Letitia Stock going to represent herself? Delane, Shree could answer that, but yeah, there she goes. She is Delane. Okay, there you go. Next topic is Unfound Now. I think we're probably going to have another one of these coming up. Really have not decided on a disappearance yet. Of course, this past month, just a couple weeks ago, covered disappearance of a young woman in Las Vegas, 17 years old, who ran off. And I talked about that and made some, Aaliyah was her name, and made some assertions about that and how we're now 2 months in and things don't seem to have changed in the status of that disappearance. And that's what I do with those Unfound Nows. I do them about publicity, but also regarding, like to show people how we assess missing persons cases when they get into the news, new ones. And then just from my own standpoint, how I analyze them and what I think people, when they hear certain things that are said by the media or by the family, I try to interpret those statements for the public once again, because I have so much experience talking to family members, and sometimes what they say and what they mean sometimes aren't the same thing. My concern continues to be in Aaliyah's disappearance is that, of course, early on, it was very easy to believe that she just ran off to be with her boyfriend in Northern Nevada. But now that we are over 2 months in, almost 3 months into this disappearance, I think that it's time to look in other places. I just can't see how they could keep it a secret that she's up there with all the scrutiny, national attention, that she could stay hidden by him or whoever, by him living at his place like this. Just too much scrutiny, too many eyes on it. So she must be somewhere else. And I do believe that she did plan to run away and she had somewhere in mind. So there you go. And thank you, Marlene. Yes. Letitia managed to get Gannon from Colorado to Florida, so I'm not going to underestimate anything she does. Yeah, a little bit. Would you please help spread the word of Melinda Davis? We could certainly do that. That's certainly going to be on my list a little bit. If it's a recent disappearance, it's certainly one that I could cover for Unfound Now. As you know, there are disappearances happening all the time, and I only can cover, I think I can only cover one a month in a quality way for Unfound Now, but it's just, and I try to let the disappearance go for a couple months just to kind of make sure that, the general news that can be put out there is out there. So I don't try to jump on a disappearance as soon as it happens. So, but I can tell you, I'm going to do one this month, but I really have not decided which one. Yeah, so it's less than a week. Well, if it's less than a week, then probably the soonest I could consider doing an Unfound on Melinda is probably in April. A little bit, probably. So there's that. So Unfound Now, I've done quite a few of them now. 7 or 8? Started that last summer. So I guess, like I said, at least 7 or 8 of those episodes. I think the first one was the Amish girl who disappeared in Pennsylvania, Linda Stoltfus. And we've done quite a few since then. Of course, the most recent one was Aaliyah from Las Vegas. And the month before that is one that started as an Unfound Now, and I didn't know that it would end up with me and with myself and John Lorden interviewing Jason's father. But that's just, you never know what can happen. But so that's what happened when we covered Jason Landry's disappearance in January. Let's move on to this. And I know that it was my little bit. I'm hoping it's resolved by April as well. I hope it's resolved tonight. And I hope that Melinda's found alive and well. Surely. Moving on to this, I know that my assistant Cherie had posted this in the discussion group today, but I'd seen news of it otherwhere, and that was these two murders in Breckenridge, Colorado, that were solved recently using DNA. On January 1982, Annette Schnee, Schnee, and Barbara Oberholzer both disappeared from the Breckenridge, Colorado area around the same time. And then eventually their bodies were both found, I think, and one of their remains were found quite quickly. And then the other remains were found like 6 months later, both murdered. And, it's weird to me thinking back to Breckenridge, Colorado, because it's weird. I was in Breckenridge, Colorado in 1985. So roughly just 3 years after these two girls were murdered. Of course, I didn't know anything about that. It must have been 14, 15 at the time. My parents and I went on vacation out there. We flew into Denver, and we went to Breckenridge. We went down to the Air Force Academy. We went down to Silverton. We went down to Durango. And there's another C.W. McCall song. Here comes the Silverton up from Durango. Here comes the Silverton of shovel and coal. I rode that train when I was in Colorado back in 1985. I rode that train. In fact, I think that's the reason my parents even decided we were going to go on vacation out there, is because of that. They started, where is that? That train actually exists? Oh, well, let's just go check out Colorado. They'd never been there before. And it's a family vacation that I look back very fondly on. But I was in Breckenridge, Colorado, just 3 years after these two girls were murdered. I was 15 at the time, and here we are in 2021. Now I'm 50, and finally their murders are being solved through DNA. And the murderer through DNA, his name is Alan Lee Phillips. And at least what I've read about it, I don't think that he ever ended up, I don't think that he was on any radar back in 1982 or any time since then. So this just shows you how helpful DNA can be, but I think it also shows you that even though it's still believed, I think the statistics still say that if somebody's going to die, if they're going to be murdered, that they're going to be murdered by somebody that they know, there is stranger on stranger crime. And I think DNA is showing that maybe it's a little more likely than we ever thought. And so it's good that these families, I saw in one of the articles that I think the father of one of these girls, he's 87 years old. And he was thinking that that he would die before there was any resolution, and now they are getting a resolution. I don't know if Alan Lee Phillips is going to plead guilty. He's still alive. I don't know. As you can guess, he's been in and out of jail over the years. Maybe he's even murdered other people. I don't know. But through DNA, they were able to attach these murders to the same guy, Alan Lee Phillips. It sounds to me like in both of these cases, these girls were hitchhiking, going somewhere, and this guy just happened to come along. And in fact, I'm going to guess that he was on that road probably because he knew that young women did hitchhike on that. It was probably cruising that area, looking for a woman or women to attack, rape, and then murder. Very much like in Morgan Harrington's situation from over 10 years ago when she went to that Metallica concert. There's no doubt in my mind that guy who ended up picking her up and murdering her was cruising around that area just because he was looking for a young woman that he could get into his car. That's why he was cruising around that campus. So I believe this the same situation with Alan Lee Phillips. He was cruising that area looking for women who were hitchhiking, and that's why, of course, hitchhiking. Um, you shouldn't do it anymore. Just don't do that. The United States, I guess, it was different. 1940s, 1950s, maybe even to the 1960s. Hitchhiking was a thing that could be done. I know my dad talks about how he used to hitchhike back and forth from Apollo, PA to Slippery Rock for school. That would have been in the 1950s, but just just hitchhiking. It's not a thing. In fact, these days, I know when I drive, out here on the 275, the 75, the nearest highways to me here in Florida, you just never see any hitchhikers anymore. And when you do, it's just so odd. It's like, what is that person doing? But that is what the authorities believe happened in these murders. And so here we are almost 40 years later. And looks like it's being resolved. Okay, so what is some of these? They're talking about Melinda Davis. Yep. Cherie says she's going to Denver in June. If anybody wants to do a meetup, yeah, let's do that. That would be great if you could arrange something like that. Why don't you post something in the group, Cherie, and maybe you can make something happen. Thank you a little bit. I try to make it enjoyable and informative. Informative first, enjoyable second. Yep. Beauty says, don't ever give up. Don't ever give up. DNA. Yep. It's true. Cherie says, I guess these two girls makes her think of Amanda Fravel. That's certainly another one like to take another look at, Cherie. I know that became a pet case for you. I think that's the reason that you and I became acquainted was through Amanda's case. That's the way I remember it. I could be wrong, but yep. And I will admit, those disappearances that we've covered from Las Vegas do stick with me because I lived there for so many years. Melissa says, I won't even get in an Uber. My luck, I'll get the serial killer driver. Yeah, well, everybody knows about my story from January when I came back from Pennsylvania and that wild ride I had through Lyft. And if it can happen to me, it can happen to anybody. You don't know Amanda Fravel's case a little bit? You should look it up. Cherie says, I used to pick up hitchhikers regularly. Used to. Cherie. No bueno. No bueno. Yeah. I know that I've never hitchhiked and I've never picked up a hitchhiker. That is for sure. Delane says, I turned 18 in 1983 and hitchhiking never even crossed my mind. Yeah, it seems to me it was like a 1970s and earlier thing. Although people did hitchhike in the 80s and the 90s onward. I think sometime in the 1970s is when people started to really think about it and say, maybe this isn't the smartest idea. Delane says, you guys come to the East Coast. Yeah, that's the East Coast is the place to be, right, Delane? Even though I'm not technically, I'm in the Eastern time zone, but I'm certainly not on the East Coast. I'm on the West Coast of Florida. Easily says, illegal to hitchhike in my town. We have had the state mental hospital for criminally. Oh, well, that makes sense easily. And you're right. I think maybe some states do have laws against hitchhiking due to the dangers and all of that. That makes sense easily. Yeah, that is true. Thank you for bringing that up. So I'm very happy for these families of Annette and Barbara that they are getting a resolution, to these murders. I'm guessing at some point they have to start thinking this might never happen. And the weird part about all this, the ironic part is that many of these murders that are unsolved happened before DNA was even a thing. The way I remember it, DNA became part of crime solving, a tool of crime solving sometime in the 1990s, maybe mid 90s. So these two young women are murdered in the early 80s. before DNA. Of course, they got DNA thinking that somewhere down the road, science might be able to use it, but there was no guarantee of that. And so these women's murders are being solved by technology that didn't even exist at the time they were murdered. It just boggles the mind. It's just crazy. Just crazy. But it's good. It's a good crazy, not a bad crazy. So, and this is, of course, every time one of these kind of situations happens, I always try to mention it because I want the guests of Unfound to realize that you just can't give up hope. You just can't. Even though I can say, on the other hand, statistics say that I could live to be 100, and many of the disappearances that have been covered on Unfound will probably not be solved, even by the time if I live to be 100, and that is as sad can be. But you have to hold out hope because you just never know when something positive can happen. You just never know. And that is my perception with many of Unfound's disappearances that have been solved. For example, Zoe Campos. I mean, that one sounded like it was as cold could be. You had somebody who you suspected, Carlos Rodriguez, but no real evidence, a lot of circumstantial. And then all of a sudden he's being charged with a murder and her remains are being dug up from his backyard. It just happened like that. You just never know. I know that when we covered that disappearance in 2018, it was just 6 months before that. And you kind of felt like, well, this might go a while. They might never have anything on Carlos or anybody else. And then it just quickly changed. And the reason it sticks out to me is this was all going on at the same time that my mother died in November of 2018. It just all kind of runs together in my head. Little bit. Thank you. You're very generous. Thank you for that super chat contribution. Thank you for thinking of Unfound and thinking that we are worthy of your contribution. Thank you. And thank you for tuning in for the first time a little bit. I guess we now have 2 little bits, but the other little bit is not in here tonight. I don't know. I know her first name, but I'm not going to say it, but it doesn't seem she was in here tonight. I have to find out where she was. It would have been weird to have 2 little bits in here. The other person spells her username Lilbit. So interesting. Okay. Let's get to Friday's disappearance. I just did the interview last night, and it is the disappearance of Stephanie Hartwell. This is a disappearance that's going to up the average age of a case covered on Unfound. This disappearance is over 19 years old. It happened on November 28th, 2001. This is a disappearance that you will find on the Charlie Project. You will find it on NamUs, and it does have a Facebook page. It happened in Columbia, Mississippi, and the interview is with Stephanie's sister, Sandoria Hartwell. I think this is the first Sandoria that I've ever known in my life. What a great name. And unlike some of the disappearances we've had earlier this year, where I think you could have a multiple of different choices, a multiple choice case, a variety of different outcomes, foul play, walked off, suicide, or all choices, TJ Murray, Noah Davis, etc. I think this one is a little bit more like Kayleen Ollings from a couple weeks ago, in which it seems we only have one choice. And we only have one, or I should say 2 suspects, but 2 suspects who might have been working together. But on the other hand, it's not that clear cut because there are some contradictions within the case itself, even though it seems to be very straightforward. And this episode is being called The Art of the Lure. We haven't talked about luring a lot. I think that we could think about it in Kayleen Ollings' disappearance from a couple weeks ago, but didn't talk a ton about it. But certainly with Stephanie's, I want to approach that topic. I want to bring new life to that topic, being that we haven't talked about it too much. Certainly not a lot in 2020, but it was a topic that I used to talk about a lot more, maybe going back to like 2018, for example. And then it's kind of taken a back seat because suddenly it doesn't seem like we had a ton of disappearances where it seemed like luring was a situation. Certainly Tyler North's disappearance he got lured to that park by his ex-wife. But not a lot, but it's still significant enough. It plays a role in enough disappearances that people need to know what it is and need to understand it. So I'm going to bring it to the forefront again in this episode to talk about that. And I think when you hear the facts of Stephanie's disappearance, you'll understand why I've done that, because the facts are that Stephanie was at home on the morning of November 28th, and she was talking to one of her friends on the phone. And another woman who she was kind of on again, off again friends with kept buzzing in like call waiting. And finally, Stephanie told the friend that she was on the phone with, "Hey, I got to go. This other woman is coming over." A few minutes later, neighbors saw Stephanie leave her apartment, and actually Stephanie saw them and told them that, yeah, she was going to be getting in this car and she was going to be going to the store, but she'd be coming right back. She never came back. She was never seen again. And the weird part about this is that she said she was going down to the store, but she didn't take her purse. She didn't take her phone. And in fact, when her sister and other family members went over to her apartment, they found that the bathtub, it seems like she was running a bath, filling it up with water, and was only half full. So it seems like she left in a hurry, even though the neighbors saw her leave and said, no, it didn't seem like she was in a hurry at all. And they identified the car that picked her up, and it was a car driven by this woman she had this on-again, off-again friendship with. It was this woman who's also the cousin of a guy that Stephanie was dating at the time. So you're going to get to hear about all of that. Once again, her sister Sandoria is the guest for the episode. Not a very long episode. Things, like I said, not a ton of facts, not because for any other reason, but this is a somewhat straightforward disappearance, unlike, once again, a Noah Davis's or a TJ Murray's ones that a lot more intricacies. Whereas, like I said, Stephanie's, it's pretty cut and dried on that. Nobody believes that anybody is lying. But that is the disappearance we will be covering this Friday, and we are calling it The Art of the Lure, because I think this is a perfect example of luring if we believe happened, if what happened seems like what happened. So there you go. Stephanie Hartwell, Hartwell, 25-year-old from Columbia, Mississippi, went missing November 28th, 2001. So just a few months after September 11th. That's interesting a little bit. Just never know. Nope. Delane says, watch your mouth, Sheree, not old. Beauty says, looking forward to it, Ed. Yeah, I think that, like I said, not going to be the longest episode, one of the shorter episodes Unfound has ever done on a disappearance. The interview was just about an hour long. Once again, that's not Sandoria's fault. We talked about everything there was to talk about. And what I like about Sandoria is she was no beating around the bush. If I asked her questions, she got right to the answer. And that makes things usually go a little quicker than maybe a different kind of interview. But that's really all I got for tonight. The time goes so fast. So let's see what we did tonight. The intro talked about my worst disc golf round ever over there at Taylor, simply because I think I was suffering from the effects of allergies. I think that's certainly because once again, I took the medicine, and then yesterday I went up to a much harder course and played much better. But I have a tournament this weekend at Brooksville PA. It's going to be in Brooksville, Florida, not Brooksville, Pennsylvania. There is a Brooksville, Pennsylvania. Brooksville, Florida. And it's going to be a long Saturday and a long Sunday for Ed. I'm going to have to find time to write the blog and everything. Just have to work that out. Still making the wings, take pictures of them to show you how I'm doing my cooking. It is the only cooking I do in my life. And once again, do not forget to give this video a thumbs up before you leave tonight. Talked about Joshua Guimond Poll. Talked about just Joshua Guimond and ever in general, and how that led me to start thinking about how we're going to start this new project, taking another look at the older episodes, disappearances that we covered in 2016, 2017, because I don't want these people to feel like we've forgotten about them. We haven't. Newsletter came out Monday. If you'd like to get it, please email me at unfoundpodcast@gmail.com. We talked about upcoming in April, the Q&A episode, update episode number 8. Trials that should be happening regarding Unfound cases in 2021. Unfound Now, look for that in a couple weeks. Talked about Annette and Barbara from Breckenridge, Colorado, how their murders, it looks like, are going to be solved through DNA. Took just a couple questions from all of you tonight. That's fine. The answer to the song quiz tonight was Wrapped Around Your Finger by the Police. And as usual, we followed that up, everything up, and ended with this Friday's episode, the disappearance of Stephanie Hartwell from Columbia, Mississippi on November 28th, 2001. So that's all I got. Is there any way to get notifications for the podcast? Well, if you have Spotify or Podomatic or iTunes, I think there is a way to get notices when the episodes are posted, Linda. It just depends on how you are listening to the program. Now, if you wait for them to be posted to YouTube by my assistant, Natasha, now that happens usually later in the day on Friday or on Saturday. And if you're a subscriber to this YouTube channel and you've hit the little bell button to get notices, little alarms when new videos are posted, then you can get the new episode alert that way when it's posted to YouTube. Totally up to you. You're welcome, Eileen. Marlene, you have a good weekend. And you catch up. Yeah. Kathy, thank you for tuning in tonight. Hello, Beauty. You too. Thank you. Linda's just signed up for Podomatic. That's as good a place as any, and it should give you notices and let you know when new episodes, 2 p.m., pretty much every Friday, if not earlier than 2 p.m., Linda, but always on a Friday. And Cherie says, keep your head on a swivel. That means always be looking around. You come out of a Starbucks, a Publix, wherever you are, you're going out to your car, always be looking around, always be looking out for your safety. And that's it. That's all I got. Thank you so much. I so much enjoyed doing this program, talking to all of you. I hope that you feel like you get to know me better every time you watch this show. And I can assure you, I think even my assistants would tell you, the person that you see here is the same person I am everywhere else in my life. My assistants will tell you that. The guys I disc golf with will tell you that. My friends forever, who have been friends since high school, elementary school, will tell you that. And I enjoyed doing that. I enjoyed getting to know all of you a little bit better, and I hope you feel like you're getting to know me. Good night, everyone. You'll hear me on Friday. Good night.